Thank you, everybody, for attending the Littleton Sewer Forum, number 8. I'm going to pass it over to Corey Godfrey for a short presentation, and then we'll take any questions.
Okay. I'll stand up here at the podium.
Save applause.
Make sure you project so our attendees can hear you.
I will. I'll do that. All right, can you go to the next slide, please, Dave? All right, just so a quick, history of the sewer project. I think most people are aware, but it's been in the making for many, many years. There was a series of separate town meeting articles to authorize $36 million over the past 5 years in order to fund the acquisition of land, design, and now construction of the project. And there's also $13 million in state funding that's been provided to the town to offset those costs. And one of the key components that made the whole project feasible was really the redevelopment of the 550 King Street project, which is the old IBM property. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of a progress update on construction since we last met. I think January was our last meeting. So the treatment plant construction at 242 King Street has been proceeding all along. They worked straight through the winter. They started last July. We're almost a year into their work there. Most of that year was spent pouring concrete for the very large bioreactor tank, which is a primary component of the treatment system. That tank is 30 feet deep, holds 270,000 gallons. So that took a lot of work over the winter. The membrane tanks were recently installed. That's sort of the second main component of the treatment process. And so now over the summer, as you drive by that property, you'll start to see the buildings take shape, and by winter time, we should have the building up and they'll be working on the inside components of the treatment system. That construction will continue until at least July of next year, maybe a couple of months after that. Next slide. Progress update on the construction with Rivoli. That's the work that's going on in the streets. That's for the sewer collection system, so pipes in the ground. That work went on pause for the winter. So it was on pause when we last met in January. They picked back up at the beginning of April. They've been making pretty good progress. Right now they're smack dab in the middle of the common, and they will be for the next few weeks probably. They're working on King Street, moving northwards towards the Westford line. And then once they complete that, or actually before they complete that, they'll have a second crew come in, starting at the common on Great Road and working towards Acton Toyota. So there'll be 2 crews working pretty soon here. All of that work is planned to wrap up by November of this year, which I think is a relief to a lot of people. So there won't be any more nighttime construction with all the noise. There won't be any more steel plates in the road, all that after November. But they will be having to come back next spring to do final paving. So by November, they'll have all of the trenches paved and everything, but that needs time to settle over the winter, and then they come back in the spring to do the final. Next slide. The third main component of the overall sewer project is the effluent recharge or leaching field site at the high school. So that's in the soccer fields up behind the high school. That project's 100% complete now. The soccer fields had new sod installed after all of the underground work was completed. Required a little bit of touch up this spring. So that's all been taken care of, and the fields will be ready for fall sports this year. Just to touch on sewer capacity, that's something we talked about at the last meeting as well. No real updates on that at the moment, other than some of the planned work we have going forward, which will be on the next slide. But just to kind of remind everyone, the project was designed as sort of a phased project. So when you're building a treatment plant and a collection system, it's not something you want to go back and have to redo 10 years later. So we designed the treatment plant and collection system for a 530,000 gallons per day capacity. The effluent recharge site, which I just talked about at the high school, has a permitted capacity of 241,000 gallons per day. So that will accommodate the current 57,000 gallons per day of all the customers that are going to be connected, plus future capacity that's been reserved by a few different commercial developers of 156,000 gallons per day. Next slide, please. And so to expand the capacity as you can see, the bottleneck really is the leach field. So we'll be able to treat up to 531,000 gallons per day. We need the leach field to take additional capacity. So we're doing two things to make sure that happens. One is to expand the capacity of the existing site at the high school. So that's essentially what we need to do is an infiltration test. Now that the system's completely constructed, this fall and winter, we'll be putting water into the site, clean water at this time, but in order to test it, we'll have monitoring wells all around the area to measure how putting 200,000 gallons a day into the site impacts the groundwater table and wetland resources around the area. Once we have all of that data, we'll be able to go back to Mass DEP and request the permit be increased to, we're expecting up to 300,000 gallons per day. So that'll be a significant increase at the existing site. We don't believe it can take any more than that. So to get beyond that, we need to find an additional discharge site, which is a longer term process. But we've already begun steps on looking for another site. Working with Weston and Sampson engineers, they've identified a handful of potential sites. So the next step for those is to actually, that was all desktop analysis. Next steps there is to go up, put in monitoring wells and soil borings and evaluate the subsurface conditions to determine if any of those sites are feasible for an additional discharge location. So we'll be doing all of this work over the next, it's like 5 months basically. And then once that wraps up, we'll have a much better handle on where we're going with future discharge capacity. Next slide. Oh, that's it.
Can I ask one question on that? The testing we're going to do this fall, we go back to DEP. The process, they're going to evaluate it and get back to us. Any idea on a timeline of how long we would expect a response from DEP on that data?
Yeah, it's sort of a multi-step process. So we'll probably be able to submit a report to them by the end of the calendar year. There's no sort of regulatory, like there's no deadline for them to get back to us really. So I have to guess a month or two probably for them to give us some kind of initial response or request additional information. And then after that, there's a more formal process. So I don't know, I would say by this time next year, we should have some kind of an approval or denial, but most likely approval to move forward with expanding the high school site.
Great. All right. Let's move on to questions, I guess.
Yeah, I have a few.
Could you just state name? And
Yeah, Paul Biagioni, 337 King Street. Okay. My biggest concerns and probably complaints is just the conditions of the trenches,
Yeah.
the way they're left. And I know we had to go through the settling process. I understand that. But we've done that. Is there any way they can touch some of them up? Because I know like even from Russell Street to the bridge. And I know you guys did the work going under the bridge. I understand that part, but it's awful.
Yeah.
And then even on the other side, from the bridge down to the high school, is that work there all done? Can they pave that and take care of that part?
I know from the bridge down to the high school, they're planning on, I think they said they're planning on paving that by August, so relatively soon. The other side of the bridge, I haven't heard anything in their schedule about that yet, but it certainly will be done by
Yeah,
November.
even if they can do some touch up to it, because it's settling pretty good and it's makes for an interesting ride.
Yeah, no,
And then even on Stephen Street, that short section there, there's one, it's like a speed bump, there's one spot. So I don't know if there's something they could do for a little bit better quality control in regards to that stuff.
Yeah, some of that, it is, Stephen Street, they did most of that before the winter, so
Yeah,
it wasn't great to begin with, and then it settled more over the winter, so it's worse now. But we can certainly talk to them about just, filling in some of the low spots.
yeah, because especially going up to the bridge, it's getting pretty.
Yeah.
And I travel like quite a few times during the day, so.
Yeah, we'll follow up with them about that.
Okay, cool.
on Russell Street, the town is looking to do work on Russell Street.
Yeah.
They're redoing that, so they're gonna be putting new sidewalks in, I think, drainage and, yeah.
Now, is that part of this year's plan or
That's
Yeah,
what
I think it is
said,
this year, yeah.
is it this year?
Yeah. Yeah, we had that question last time on, we tried to combine as much, we didn't want to do the water main upgrade, then sewer upgrade, and then the highway do and touch it 3 times.
Yeah.
So we combine water main and sewer into one project, and then highway will do their piece.
Well, and Russell Street is, I think, been junk since I went to school there. You know, it's been pretty rough.
Yeah,
It's still,
it is.
There's Soja, Hartwell Avenue. I've lived in town for over 20 years. It's always been very quiet, very peaceful. I live on top of a hill. And starting in December of last year, I encountered a low frequency rumbling sound. 24/7. I went down to the construction site on King Street, which is almost at 495. And I talked to the engineers and I said, is it you guys that are making that noise? We don't work at night, they said. They also called the phone number and I talked to someone at LELWD with the water. And I asked, is somebody working at night? No, nobody's working at night. I can't sleep. This rumbling is going on day and night, 24/7 with some very brief intervals. There was no noise the weekend of Easter. So my question is it possible that the rumbling is coming from some of the sewer work? And if so, what's it gonna last? I mean, I'm having trouble living there. I can't sleep at night. I have to use a white noise machine. And I got a one of those frequency analyzers. So it's a low frequency. It's anywhere between 25 and 60 hertz. And it's constant with some exceptions. There are like May 23rd for 4 days it stopped. Did you guys work on Easter weekend? My question is it possible that it's related to the sewer work?
So this would have been the months of January, February.
Started in December.
It never stopped?
Nope.
Yeah, because we didn't have crews, there were no sewer crews working.
No.
When did Rivoli, was it end of December?
Rivoli left in November, came back in April. So
What,
all of the work in the streets that's happening up in the common right now, that's the sewer collection system that Rivoli's working on. They weren't working at all during the winter. So it certainly wasn't from them.
And those are the crews that are working at night.
Yeah, and then that 242 King Street where the treatment plant's being built, those crews worked through the winter as well, but not at night at all. So there's nothing happening at night.
so you don't think that low frequency rumbling has anything to do with the construction of the sewer?
No, is it a buzzing
No,
or
it's a rumbling.
it's a rumbling?
It sounds like, it's a low frequency rumbling. Sounds like a diesel locomotive, or it sounds like an industrial generator. That's what it sounds like.
What was your address again? You said Hartwell,
95 Hartwell,
95.
driving me nuts.
During the day and at night?
Yeah. 24/7. I piped in the Hartwell Preserve,
Yeah.
and it's very loud in the Hartwell Preserve. The closer I get to Russell Street, the louder it gets. So I've driven all over the place to try to find out where this rumbling is coming from. I have engaged the Mass DEP, the Board of Health. Nobody can figure out where it's coming from, and the only thing that I can think of is it's related to the sewer construction. So that's why I'm here, is to find out if it's possibly coming from some of that construction, and if so, will it ever end, or am I going to be totally insane and I have to move? Because it's bad. I can't sleep. I'm exhausted.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine how it would be from any of the sewer construction. Because like we said, the treatment plant only had that construction's only during the day. And the collection system construction's only during the spring, summer and fall, not
Well, I
winter.
just read online that you are working at night.
Yeah, the sewer collection system is at night,
Yeah, so
but that's not during the winter. That's only during the summer.
It didn't start back up until April.
Yeah.
you don't think that rumbling could be anything related to the sewer?
Say that.
But it sounded, but we could have a staff member, meet you and try to see if they can hear it and try to pinpoint it.
I had the guys from the electric company come up. 6 guys came up with their trucks. They could all hear it. 6 guys could hear it. But I thought perhaps there was some change in the power structure in town, and they said, no, we hadn't changed anything. I even called the seismic society to see if there was any seismic activity, and it's not that. I have done extensive research. I'm trying to find out where this rumbling is coming from. I've also gone out to the rail yards to see if they have locomotives running, because sometimes you have to leave them running in the winter. There's nothing running out there.
That's pretty far away though.
Well, on the top of a hill, there's no impediments, sound
Yeah, but
can travel.
Are your neighbors experiencing the same thing?
Well, they're down below the hill. I have a friend who lives at 125 and I was at her house and I could hear it there, 125 far away. I could also hear it at the library.
But before you leave tonight, if you give Sarah your phone number,
Yes,
we'll have somebody reach out to you.
I need help.
Yeah.
I really do because I feel like I need to sell the house. It's that bad. And it's especially bad on the side of the house facing Russell Street. The side where it's facing the west is not as bad. But it seems like the wood of the house might amplify the rumbling. Because that's where most of the noise is. It's on the side of the house toward Russell Street.
Okay.
But I've run out of ideas. I've called everyone, I've tried everything. And nobody can figure out what it is, so.
You mentioned certain dates where you didn't hear it. If you can give Sarah those dates too, then we can kind of
It
look
was the
into.
weekend of Easter.
Okay.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It stopped May 23rd for 4 days. But it always resumes. And I'm on edge. I have PTSD from, I never know when it's gonna start again.
Well, that's helpful information because we can at least then go talk to our contractors. It wouldn't be Rivoli, but the treatment plant contractor to see if anything changed on those dates that would have made the sound go away, but
Yeah,
I can't imagine anything, but we'll look
but
into
it's
it.
24/7. Like I said, I have to sleep with two white noise machines and I sleep with that racket. It's impossible. And the Board of Health representative, he did make a valiant attempt to help, but he couldn't hear anything because he has a hearing impediment. So he wasn't much use. He said, I can't hear anything. Well, then he finally admitted it was something wrong with his hearing. I even had a hearing test to make sure it wasn't me. I've had several friends come over, they can hear it. So, no, they were gonna come and attest to the fact that they could hear the rumbling too. Inside and outside the house. So.
We can certainly help you look into it.
That would be wonderful, really, because I don't know where else to turn. The Board of Health has given up.
Okay.
So thank you
Sure.
very much.
is there anybody on Zoom, Dave?
No,
No.
just Judy.
Any more questions? All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
For joining. See you at the next forum.